World stock markets plummeted on Monday, the worst drop since the World Trade Center attack in 2001.
In Spain, the jobless rate has hit over 21%, the highest level in 15 years.
Again, we are told the global economy risks skidding back into recession just 3 years after pulling out of the previous one.
The number of young long-term jobless in Britain has almost doubled in the last 2 years.
They are also deep in debt, 24,000 in the hole on average, and there's even a student debt clock now where the total is approaching for all of our students nearly, yes, $1 trillion.
Youth unemployment in this country is twice as bad as it is for the general population.
New analysis of official unemployment figures reveals how the real victims of the economic crisis are the young.
Anna.
Hello, Alistair. Hello.
You seem eager.
As you know, I've been working here for over a year.
Has it been that long? Well, you are an invaluable part of our operation.
Which I recently learned means very valuable as opposed to not at all valuable. And I wanted to let you know that my circumstances have changed and I can no longer afford to work for free.
Oh, Anna. I'm so sorry to lose you. I was just gonna start you manning our Twitter. You have just the quippy voice for that.
Oh, no, I'm not quitting. I just, I know that Joy Lynn got hired after interning, so I thought that maybe...
Anna, Joy Lynn knows Photoshop. Now, in this economy, do you know how many internship requests I get every day?
I would assume a lot.
50, it's about 50. I practically route them into my spam filter. So, if you think you have just nothing left to learn from us...
No, it is not that, really. I just, gotta eat.
Well, when you get hungry enough, you're gonna figure it out.
Do you mean like physically hungry or like hungry for the job?
I am really gonna miss your energy. I think this is gonna be really good for you.
Internships have become increasingly common in America, and today about half of college students do some kind of internship. But lots of people say that it's about time the Labor Department started punishing companies that employ unpaid interns.
There's approximately, on the scale of like 150 to 200,000 illegal unpaid internships, where interns are forgoing wages, entitlements like CPP and employment insurance, workplace benefits, what one would normally get when one's employed.
For young people who can't get a job today and want to know why.
Okay, you're wearing a red shirt. Andrew is wearing a red patch. And for those who don't know, do you want to explain what that red patch refers to?
Well, it's to show solidarity with the students in Quebec who are challenging the government.
So you're with them?
Yes.
Spiritually, anyway. What are you finding out there?
Well, a number of things. Young people are, facing the prospect of having to develop, a career with only a temporary stream of precarious jobs. That's number one. Two, they're facing increasing economic insecurity, and they're having problems building a life that their parents knew and their grandparents knew.
I graduated from university my undergrad about 8 years ago. And, thinking back, not many of my friends did internships. It was very rare. But, in the last 10 years, there's been an explosion.
Starting at the turn of the century, with so much kind of in the classroom education now required to take on these professions. After World War II, there's a sense that these kids are in the classroom too much. They need practical experience again in order to, especially maybe with business, they need to now work in their field a bit more before they graduate in order to send, productive businessmen out into the world.
Through the 80s, in almost every country, we saw more right-wing, conservative politicians come into power. Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, Brian Mulroney. You can go down the list of every country how we made a swing towards more conservative politics. And what it meant was that a lot of legislation that was introduced in those times started reducing the safety net, started putting constraints on income support, started reducing the role of government in terms of the direction it might give to the economy, in terms of the regulatory framework that governed how companies operated. And so we started seeing a kind of a balance now shift from, let's say in support of a kind of more free market approach to solving problems.
Historically in Canada, governments have been very poor in tracking the types of labor that people engage in and the types of work that people engage in. So, government has a very narrow definition of what is labor, and that is paid employment, where you're receiving wages. Unpaid internships fall into, unpaid labor, unpaid work, and it's something that young people engage in, as part of their educational activities and, part of the transition from school into the labor market. And that's not very well understood.
We often hear from employers that when students finish school or graduate from college and universities, they don't always have the hands-on experience. So the reason why internships were formed to begin with was to facilitate this work experience. So I think that until now, the relationship has been quite open, and there haven't been too many rules put in place because it was seen as a facilitation to for something good, something to facilitate employment in the future.
Originally, I have my background is completely in acting. I decided I was going to go to school and get a degree in something legitimate, which didn't pan out the way that I expected it to. Went to Humber College, got a diploma in graphic design, and from there I kind of just did the whole internship kind of process.
I had been working, but not in a field that was direct to my degree, so I thought, you know what, I'll get exposure doing an unpaid internship with Bell Mobility. It would be associated with Bell, which is a huge company across Canada. So I think myself, like other interns, took this just for branding purposes to put on your resume, thinking it would be great to have. And also when joining a big company, you think, internal postings, you can move up from there. It's a good opportunity.
I think it's fabulous for the students. One of the most valuable things for the student is it is a foot in the door. And for big, complex, multi-armed octopus organizations like the CBC, it's very, very hard to get your foot in the door.
I see those students and I think you have no idea what a golden opportunity this is. Like you have your foot on the first rung of the ladder, and this is a ladder that can go.
It just seems really baffling how you could get a position on the staff of a magazine. It seems like an impossible feat. So I found it really helpful to hear about how other people got into it, and you start to realize like, oh, there's a lot of different routes that you can take to get here. And I think that's really helpful for the interns to hear.
The internship is hugely valuable. It gives you a foot in the door. It gives you really valuable contacts. You meet producers, you meet program producers, and as I say, when you do graduate, you've got a point of contact, and a very high number of our percentage of our interns do come back after they graduate, and they do get work here. So I think it's hugely valuable. And whether you intern at CBC or anywhere else, I think students really should think very carefully about where they intern. I think sometimes they don't give it enough thought because it is really a foot in the door wherever you're going to go intern. It gives you real life experience, real world experience, and the contacts, which are in our business really, really important.
First experience with an internship was not exactly the fun one that everyone kind of, I guess, hopes for. Went to this agency and they loved me apparently when I was there. I was supposed to be doing a 3-month internship, paid, which is actually completely unheard of from my end at least. And it was supposed to be, full-time. So I went in and I did all my work, and halfway through, my creative director told me, so like, when's your internship time done? And I was like, it was done like 2 weeks ago. He's like, well, we can't keep you here and we can't pay you. So that day they kicked me out and I had nothing for my book. I didn't get paid anything, which I was supposed to be, and I didn't have a job. So it was not exactly fun.
In the program, our core hours are 9 to 5, and you do sign off saying I will do extended hours of 5 to 7 p.m. Several nights I was there past 10 p.m., once there till after 12 a.m. in the morning. When you complete 400 hours, only then you get a reference, a written letter of reference. So a lot of us, we would talk, we would be unhappy with the late nights, but you think, you know what, we're all selectively hired, we're all optimistic, we're all dedicated, we're all hardworking, so we think, I'll be happy about it, I won't complain, I'll stay dedicated to the program, I'm not going to say no, I'm going to do work when they need me to do work. And you don't want to put your reference at line if you're doing something solely for the reference. We're not doing it for the money, we're not getting paid. So it wouldn't make sense to say no, I'm not going to stay late. It wouldn't make sense to say I'm not going to push myself at every end if it's your reference at line, and that's the only reason why you're doing the program.
We usually have 4 editorial interns at any given time. They run in 4-month increments. But the editorial internship, the sort of meat of the program is fact-checking. We fact-check every article that goes into the paper. So we really rely on our interns for that. We take that really seriously. Unfortunately, lots of magazines can't really afford to have fact-checkers on staff anymore. I think it used to be a lot more common. But nowadays, things are getting a little bit more dicey in that department, but we still make sure that we fact check all the articles that go into print.
We love interns here. I love interns here because we wear a lot of hats here, so it's important to make sure that all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, and interns come in extremely handy when it comes to details and small tasks that have to be done repetitively.
It's embarrassing how much we rely on them. Like our interns write page 1 stories, our interns write Saturday features. They're working day to day as fully functioning reporters. The expectations on them are the same as the full-time permanent reporters.
When it comes down to it, it's the duties between an unpaid intern and an entry-level employee virtually indistinguishable.
If something is so imperative to get done, why would you rely on unpaid interns to do it?
Very difficult to expect people to gain that experience without getting paid. So You know, we do that with schooling, right? We say, okay, there are tuition fees, there are living expenses. We make available financial supports through loan programs and some grant programs that can allow people to sustain themselves, because we want to make sure there's equity in terms of people's ability to gain those credentials that will allow them to compete in the labor market. But we don't do that in terms of internships. We don't have ways to even out the differences that exist in people's income or their ability to rely on parents to support them.
It's a lot more complicated than just saying like, oh, it's bad to work for free. Because I did it voluntarily, and I'm really happy that I did it, because I would not have had a job without it. I just had family help with paying for school, and I've worked since I was in high school, and I've managed to cover things. I've just had a lot of money saved up that I didn't need to take out any loans. I'd say that the tuition was my family. You know, they've been saving since I was a baby. But I'd say I didn't have to take out any loans to pay for my own whatever. Like, I just had my own savings, and I always worked throughout school, so I managed to make it work.
Definitely in terms of class, it's the case that if you are a student that can afford to take on an unpaid internship as opposed to a student that has to work to keep themselves from going further into debt or to continue affording post-secondary education, you are going to have a better chance at getting that job as soon as you come out of graduation. And so it just furthers the divide between upper and middle to lower class.
I don't know what those students do when a requirement of the program is to do an internship where you have to pay tuition and then be out of pocket. Like, I don't know how they satisfy that requirement.
Students in Ontario graduate with an average of $37,000 worth of debt, which is public and private loans combined. That's where that number comes from. So, so they're really taking on mortgage-sized debt loads, and a fun fact is that $37,000 is a down payment on a $740,000 home.
It puts people who don't have that kind of support system, puts them at a disadvantage in terms of acquiring that experience, and it's necessarily going to be based on income, on class. We rank first in the world in terms of the proportion of people with post-secondary degrees who are making below the poverty level. Okay? So something's not working here.
We're not talking about huge amounts here, right? The minimum wage in New York State, let's say, about I think $7.25 an hour. In Ontario, it's $10.25 an hour. So these aren't big amounts. So these aren't even amounts that people can really live on. But you know, for some reason, employers, you know, don't feel that interns are entitled to the minimum wage, and when they do complain about being exploited or not being paid, or the employer not meeting the minimum standards, there's quite a harsh response.
I would go in and do whatever I needed to do just to kind of get full-time employment right now, because it's been a long time. I've been out of school for 2 years now and been avidly looking for a job, and it's not that easy to come across anything. Even free work, working for free is not that easy to come across. I applied for this job, and she called me back the next day saying over 250 people applied for a 1-year internship, and I was one of the only people that didn't have my master's. So this is, you're still working for free, and apparently the going to school for 3 years meant nothing, and I was competing against people that were in school for 7, 8 years having their master's degree for an internship.
Not really, I'm not gonna lie.
I haven't compared the two.
No. No, I've never heard of that. What is the Employment Standards Act?
The Employment Standards Act is a document that lists the minimum social minimums that Ontario employers have to meet. So in the Employment Standards Act, there's things contained such as the minimum wage, hours of work, when you can take breaks, stuff such as how much vacation you can take, what amounts you're owed upon termination. So there's termination and severance pay. There's protection around parental leaves, Basically, it contains, some of the core rights that employees enjoy in Ontario.
It was clear that this was an unpaid internship when I applied for it. It was very clear, and it was also very clear that I would be receiving a lot of training, and it was just unfortunate that it was otherwise upon actually going in. It felt as if we were just producing work, and yes, you do learn while you do work, but that's parallel to what an employee does. Of course, an employee is going to learn as they're hired. I do think they used intimidation tactics to take advantage of their staff, to kind of squeeze out every hour that they could.
There are concerns that are increasing in regards to unpaid internships in terms of abuse or misuse of young workers. So that's something that the ministry will look at closer, I am sure, as we go forward.
I've heard nothing about the Ministry of Labour undertaking any level of enforcement activities related to unpaid internships.
We have now more officers that are doing proactive work, and when I say by proactive work is that means visiting places of work and trying to make sure that all the employment standards rules are being followed.
During my time there, I didn't see anyone ever monitoring the program.
At the 3 internships I did not ever see an employment standards officer.
To the point of hiring more employment standards officers, the Ministry of Labour did come out with a document in October indicating that they were going to begin to do proactive employment standards inspections in Ontario workplaces. They have not hired these employment standards officers yet, and it remains to be seen what actual activities the ministry is going to undertake in this regard.
I think the unpaid internship is kind of it's a symptom of something much bigger.
It goes back to some very fundamental problems that are present in society related to cultural exclusion, economic exclusion, exclusion on the basis of race. And these are very deep-seated problems that have been with us for hundreds of years.
We're also being faced with this rhetoric of things like an unpaid internship is an investment. You should be happy to get experience in your field. And I think that this is something that we should push back on a little bit, because the reality is we're coming out of school and we're already in debt, and it's hard to find jobs and those sorts of things. And we would actually be better contributors to the economy if we could come out of school and be able to give back.
It's a current issue, and I would like to think that the ministry, the colleges, the universities may not realize that at times this is leading to non-employment.
Should young people not take unpaid internships? It's a personal decision.
You pay your dues, you put in the work, and then you evolve out of that status, and because you've gotten an intern of your own.
Many students graduate with debt, and you're going to have to work in some other field to start paying back your OSAP.
We probably all have to, including the young workers, all of us have to take a second look and make sure that regulations are what they should be in order for young people not to be exploited.
Not understanding basic legal principles around workplace law, it won't get you very far.
We live in the real world. We don't live in a fairy tale. I don't feel morally responsible for the interns. It's kind of, maybe that sounds cold, but you have to make it work for yourself. People will help you, if you're doing good work and if you ask for help, but I don't really feel like it's a moral issue, I guess. It just sort of is what it is.
I think that people come out of school and they don't know what their worth is. They think that their self-worth is much lower than it actually is, because you come out of school and you're like, oh, I don't have any experience, I don't know the industry. And I think that a lot of industries take advantage of that. And they say, well, you know, you're a junior, so you don't know as much as me. And then you get there thinking that, okay, like I've got lots to learn and I'm definitely I'm not worth getting paid for. And I think that's how they see it. And then once they finish, they realize, man, like I was definitely doing legitimate work that's actually being used, like being printed out in the real world, and I didn't get paid for it. I email, I call, I go in, I do whatever I can. I have emailed probably over 250 places. I've called hundreds of them. I have dual citizenship to the UK as well. I've looked over there and there's nothing there either. So it's just kind of a waiting game, and you have to be at the right place at the right time.
It didn't offer me any learning. It didn't offer me any potential to grow within the company or outside of the company. So it wasn't worth my time to stick around. I found it to be not in line with the ESA, the Employment Standards Act, and I felt that the work we were doing wasn't of value to myself, and I went and I filed a claim against it because I was not gaining as much learning as I should be for an unpaid internship.
This valued time on my CV. Sometimes I get sent away for sandwiches and such. Not too sure this internship is adding up to much. 4 years at university for 3 months growing up. Got to dash, the art director needs another cup.
I've been working like a dog here, but I'm really made for this. Although I think I should be getting really paid for this. They say I'm a valued member of the team, so it makes sense for a little bit of value to be changed for pounds and pence. I know I should be grateful for a foot inside the door, but gratitude and platitudes don't stop me being poor.
Some interns get a better deal. I'm glad that includes me. You shouldn't be a dog's body. You shouldn't work for free. It doesn't pay a fortune, but it keeps the wolves away. And I'm learning something useful, not just filling up the day. It really seems so simple that I honestly can't tell why it is that all internships can't be managed well.